All right. Hello, Fellowship Church. And I'm here with Andy Johnson, who is one of the church planners that we began supporting this year. And I'm excited to introduce him to all of you and for us to be able to begin to pray for him and his family and the work that they're doing. Andy and his family recently moved to a capital city of a country in Central Asia. And so, Andy, welcome. Welcome to our prayer meeting.
Great. Thanks for having me. It's a privilege.
Yeah, excellent. So why don't we start with just, I don't think anybody other than myself at Fellowship Church has met you. So why don't we start by you just telling us a little bit about yourself and your family. So just kind of introduce yourself.
Sure. So I grew up in Texas with believing parents, and I actually planned to go do gospel work overseas. So I ended up getting a PhD in agriculture from Texas A&M University, thinking that I would go be an agricultural scientist doing work somewhere in the former Soviet Union. Ended up getting involved at Capitol Hill Baptist Church in DC right after I'd finished grad school. And then I just decided to stay there, and I got a job with the government, and I was an elder and a member at that church in Washington, DC for about 25 years. I got married along the way. I have 3 kids. You can even see my children because they're here in our living room. There's my daughter, Evelyn. There's my son, Samuel.
Hey, Samuel.
My
Awesome.
son, Drew, is off doing something else. He's 13.
Okay.
My wife is Rebecca. And yeah, so that's kind of where we came from. I worked for the government for about a decade as a scientist doing science policy stuff while I was an elder at Capitol Hill Baptist Church. And then I quit my day job as a scientist and went on staff as one of their associate pastors and did that for about 15 years. And then over the years, my family, we've spent a lot of time in Central Asia. Our church has been really focused on work over here. And particularly because of the need for a church plant in this city, our church actually decided we wanted to work on trying to encourage a church plant here. And then in the process of that, my family and I decided, well, hey, why don't we be the people to do the church plant? And so we started planning for that a couple of years ago, and just arrived here in the city we're in about 3 weeks ago.
All right. Awesome. Wow. So you guys have just landed, and you and I, we met through that connection. We're friends with Capitol Hill Baptist Church, and you've advised us some on through your book, and then in one conversation on our missions kind of strategy. And so that's how we got connected. And we're excited about what you're doing, and we're excited for our church to hear more about kind of why a church is needed in this city. And so kind of what led you to decide to do this, and what are your goals for this new church you're hoping to start?
Yeah, so I mean, it's an unusual thing in that we're planning to plant an English language international church, not a church in the local language. But over the last 15 years or so, our congregation has helped to plant about, I don't know, somewhere around 7, 8, 9 churches like this in cities like in Shanghai, China, in the United Arab Emirates, elsewhere in Central Asia, in about 3 different cities. And we've just seen that when you have a healthy church in English, even if you build a healthy church and gather expats from like English speaking, people, or people with English as a second language. So, not just people from North America, but, people from India, the Philippines, Brazil, other places in Europe, and you build a healthy church, it becomes sort of a platform for other gospel workers, for people who just live in the city, and become sort of a hub for work. And yeah, we're excited about trying to get one of those planted here in a capital city.
Okay, awesome. And so here, let me switch to the right view. And so in this city where you're at, are there a lot of people like that? A lot of people who, are from other nations, speak English as primary or secondary language?
But because it's not the largest city in the country where we are, but it's the capital. And so, yeah, there are tens of thousands of people from both English-speaking countries and just people who speak English as their second language. One of the weird things we've seen is a lot of these churches, the vast majority of the church members will not be primary English speakers, but the way English has become like the world language, it's the one language that the people from Brazil and the Philippines and Bangladesh and the Gulf states, it's the one language they all have in common and the believers can sort of gather around. And then the hope that from that, we can begin to help facilitate work in the local language, seeing churches planted.
Okay, awesome. And so did you already, you said your church back in Washington, D.C. was thinking, it'd be good to start a church in the city where you just moved. Do you already know people, or is there already a group of people kind of excited about this vision?
We have one of our former staff is a full-time gospel worker here in the city, a missionary. And it was through him that we became aware of just the need here. And then because our church is in Washington, D.C., we have members of our church who end up working here in the embassies. So there's actually quite a few people here we already know. So we already have a core between those folks and then other folks we've gotten to know here in the city, a core of about 20 adults that are wanting to be part of the church plant. We're actually hoping to have all of them over for a cookout on next Sunday evening. So
yeah, excellent. And yeah, so lots of people from all over the world come to this city. We talk to, college students in our church or young adults in our church sometimes who are thinking, hey, I'd like to go serve somewhere. Could you imagine somewhere down the road, people, from different churches, from your church in DC, from potentially Fellowship Church, just coming and in any way contributing to what is going on there?
We would love to see that, because we feel like, just a healthy gospel preaching church is a great thing anywhere. So we don't want to just use this church as a means to an end. We just want it to be a healthy church in English, in a place where there's a lot of English speakers. But on top of that, people are living among, millions and millions of other people who are not believers. And just living here gives people tons of gospel opportunities. And we hope to be sort of a light to other churches. There's not many here, and the few that are here, many of them are not very healthy, and trying to help encourage that. So just people that wanted to come here to go to the universities, get a master's degree, were able to come with a job or just come alongside, doing student work. Those kind of things I think would be great. And then just be faithful, normal members of this church, and then live out their life here just in a place where, instead of there being 150,000 Christians in the town where you live, maybe there, 2,000.
Yeah.
At most.
Yeah, that's great. Just a couple more questions. One is just want to check in how you're doing. I mean, you just moved from the United States, in the midst of a pandemic into a different nation. You said you got there 3 weeks ago. It looks like you at least got some books out of your boxes. So that's a good sign.
So
but how's it going?
We're doing pretty well. And hey, I'm going to rewind to your previous question because I like adverts, especially here in the city. There are two large universities that are very reputable, and I can get information to you, Mark, and you could get it to people that might be interested. But the universities here these two in particular are 100% English. So all the instruction's in English. So if there's particularly a student that wanted to get a master's degree, they could come over here and get a legit master's degree at a really good school for a little bit of nothing, and be able to communicate with thousands of students on day one in English. And we already have one single woman from our congregation who's planning to move here in October to do that. And we'd love it if there were several more people that wanted to come help sort of pioneer gospel work on these university campuses. So
yeah, awesome.
That's something someone could think about.
Yeah.
To your other question, how are we doing? I think we're doing really well. Moving in the middle of a pandemic was kind of stressful because we went ahead and leased a house, and it sat here empty for months while we waited for flights to reopen. And we just kind of Then we went ahead and shipped off everything from our house. So we just kind of camped out in our empty house in DC, waiting for flights to open up here. And then when we flew here, we stayed somewhere else for a while we waited for our stuff to get here. But once we've got set up, we know people here, and we're looking forward to gathering with other Christians. But coronavirus stuff is still a big issue here. It's not near as big an issue as it is in the United States, but they still don't have face-to-face school. So my kids are having to do school online and, stuff like that. But it's probably not much different than what the members of your church are going through. So,
yeah, we're all online for this fall. I mean, the school we're doing church outside. But last thing is, what are 2 or 3 ways that you'd like the people who are watching this the first time are people who love to pray, and so they will pray for you. So give us 2 or 3 or 4 ways that you'd like us to be praying for you.
Sure. I'll give you 3. One, if you just pray for our gathering with the other people who want to be a part of this congregation. The way we've approached trying to gather a new congregation is maybe might be kind of strange in church planting, but we've tried to be very quiet about things and just gather a small group of people that are very like-minded, that agree on everything. And we're hoping to spend some time together and then constitute as a church. And then we'll start inviting other people, because there's a lot of unhealthy evangelical stuff going on here. So that's the first thing, is just praying for this group of people, that we'd be of one mind, be able to gather together and constitute as a church well. The second thing is, I was talking to Mark about this earlier, but my wife and I are planning to pursue getting Turkish citizenship. We'll be dual citizens, but through some investment stuff we're trying to go ahead and just get that so we'd be undeportable. And if your folks could just pray that would go smoothly and well. I feel like I'm spending, frankly, too much of my time on like logistics and real estate trying to get this citizenship thing done. I want to get it out of the way so I can think about other things. So if they could pray for that to go well, and that God would just use that so that we could have years of stable, faithful ministry here and not be worrying about being kicked out of the country. And then third, if you could just pray for my family to settle well. They've done amazingly well so far, but it's been a lot of stress relocating right at this particular time in history, and just praying for my family that they thrive here, and that also would help us just to be able to have years of ministry here.
Excellent. Okay, awesome. We're going to pray. So what we'll do is, the first time we show this in the prayer meeting, you guys at home just have several minutes to pray for all these things that Andy just mentioned, and then I'll close us in prayer in a moment. All right, we're gonna say bye to Andy. Thank you for taking time to join us.
Thanks a lot.
Andy. All right.
Really appreciate it, and appreciate the prayers. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. God bless you.